Hi YouTubers, welcome back to part 2 of my Trix Twin railway restoration, and I have up to now lubricated all of the axles, made sure all the couplers are at right height, and I have here an uncoupler ramp at the back. If I just move this one towards the tanker and pull, then they couple up very nicely. And then to uncouple, oops, wasn't meant to do it there, activate the lever, try again, activate the lever, pull the coupler across the lever and the unhook, and then they can be pushed away and left alone. So I've got all the coupler heights the same. I've cleaned and lubricated all of the axles, and the only part I have left to do with the rolling stock is to have a look at the brake van. Mind you, the problem with the brake van is this sort of corrosion that seems to have attacked the roof and at least one side of it, and little bits in the other plates. I'm not sure what's caused it, but my task is to try and clean it off. Well, I let it soak while I had a little cup of coffee, and then I rubbed it with a brass brush, brass being softer than steel, and then I finished off with a rub with a little bit of sandpaper. I don't think it's working very well, so I'll investigate another way of trying to clean this up. It might need a bit of a strip down and a repaint. At the moment, I'm not going to worry too much about it. I think this time we turn to the electrics. This is one of two power supplies which I got with the system. Mains plug one end, connectors at the back, and some switches at, presumably you'd call it, the front, and these two levers allowed to switch between different settings. Now, I wasn't very sure what they were first time I looked at it, but I've kind of examined the logo at the front, connectors at the back, and read the manual, and as far as I can make out, this allows you to power the rail through two of the leads and the accessories through a different pair. I haven't yet worked out if I can do that simultaneously. The connectors at the back read as C at one side, V in the centre, and A at the other side. C, I would imagine, stands for common, and it's connected to the centre rail of the track system. The V, which I'm going to take as variable output, goes to one of the outside rails of the track system. And the A, which I could read as auxiliary power, is fed to things like point motors and lights, etc. Selection of the output is done through these buttons. When they're both in that position, it's marked as off. This one here is going between V and C, which we presume would be the variable control, which is this one here. And although there's no stop anywhere in the middle, I'm kind of working on the basis that center is off, this is forward or one direction, and this is in the opposite direction. We'll find out once I hook it up. This is your auxiliary output, which gives the full 14 volts AC out between the two terminals at the back, C and A. Because I'm working on a mains transformer, which I'm unfamiliar with, I'm going to feed it through this safe block, which is in turn is connected to an isolation transformer. This means I can cut it off quickly if there's any problems. I've already checked the wiring and it's fine, but it's a Bakelite plug, and I think regulations are such that I really ought to replace this with a modern plastic plug. But I'll get Ian's permission, because it's not my set, to see if he wants to damage the authenticity by putting in a new plug. Right, I'm ready to switch on, so I'm going to set up my meter for AC volts. As you can see the reading there. So I'm going to put one connection into the common output and the other into the A output. Make sure it's on AC. There we go. And now I can switch it on. Of course these buttons are off, so I'm going to activate the AC button. It's giving me 37 volts already at the moment, so let me just put this up and on there, and it's dropped to 16 off load, which is what I'd expect. Let me switch it back off again, and in fact it's gone to 37. So what is that, maybe in millivolts? I don't know. But certainly the on off switch switches on 16 volts off load. I'm now going to connect the meter up to the C terminal and the V terminal and activate it with the black lever. Switch it on and the voltage goes to 16. So I'm going to activate the control, see what happens. And there's not much going on there. Try again. A to C it says, or V to C, and there's not a lot happening there. Maybe it needs to be on load before we see any change. I decided to try the second transformer which I got with the set. This time it has no plug on it at all, so I can connect this directly into my safe block. I'm going to carry out the same set of tests with this one. Activate switch. It's across the C and the A. I get 24 volts out. When it's off, switch it on and it drops to 16 volts, and this makes no difference really. So I can take the lead out and put it onto the V output, switch this off, this on, oops, on, and again no variation in the voltage output whatsoever. So perhaps because it's off load, it's not reacting to the changes in the power supply. The unit came with this tangle of wires. There are two colours, there's brown and a sort of dirty white. But how many wires are there? Do you know, I don't know. But there are, I can count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plugs, a couple of loose ends. So that would suggest 4 ends, that'd be 4 wires. So let me untangle this and see if I can make some sense of it. So after untangling the bird's nest, and I mean no offence to birds who use great skill in constructing their little homes, I've ended up with 5 separate wires. 3 in white, 2 in brown, this one here particularly long, the rest fairly short and usable. So I'm going to start off by picking one pair, and we'll try and connect this up to the rails and see if something will happen. At this stage I thought I'd try and test my little 040. So I've got a length of track set up. The brown lead is in the centre, coming from the C terminal of the power supply. The white lead is attached to the A terminal of the power supply. So I've no idea how to go about this. So I got my multimeter. So a couple of quick checks and make sure that I get voltage. And it's reading an AC voltage between those two tracks, and not an awful lot between those two tracks. So I'm going to operate my control. There seems to be some kind of fizzing and buzzing, and the cutter is activated. When I switch it on, something coming from the locomotive, but not really what we would expect. I've connected my power application probe to the output of the power supply, so I'm going to connect them, make sure it's switched on, connect them to the shoes and see if we get any results. A little spark, but nothing much else, and reversing them doesn't make any difference. So there is some current being drawn, but it's not activating the motor. Using the advice in the supplied instruction book, I'm going to try and dismantle the locomotive. These two bits here are plugs which hold in the brushes and the springs, and in here you might just be able to make out an armature. So this is a motor assembly connected to a set of gears which in my mind are reminiscent of Trevithick's early locomotive. I shouldn't have tried that, should I? Okay. Right. So Is there anything here? Yep, it's trying to work. Trying to work. Sorry, was that in screen? I bet it wasn't on shot. Oh well. Try again. This is a reverser arm, whatever that does. I can feel it buzzing, but there's no rotation from the armature. Just does one part of a turn and then stops. Sorry, my head was in the road there. I'm going to remove these plugs. This should allow the brushes to come out. They seem to be unscrewed. There we go. There's a spring. And that's the brush there. I think it looks kind of worn, so perhaps it's a good idea to order up some new ones. Second cap. And the brush is still inside. Reluctant to be released. There we go. There's also a bearing here, so I'm just going to apply a little bit of lubrication to the bearing, just because it's there. And what I really want to do is remove this plate to clean the commutator. And that involves removing these two screws on the opposite side. Looks as if I need to move this one as well. There are bits which are likely to come loose, so I notice this bit here. These are two contact arms, so I'm just trying to ease my way around this. It did say could need a wee bit of coaxing, I think is the word they've used. So I'm just going to gently work at it, and when I get it off I'll come back to you. Okay, a little word about the state of play. I've removed this cover here, which has allowed me to clean the commutator and also clean these arms on this little plate here. I've removed this reversing, I think it's something to do with reversing, and it sits in here, little pivot hole in there. I've given a little bit of lubrication and a little cradle arm in there, and when this all goes together again, there are two little comma looking parts which seem to act. I'm sure that came out that way, was it? No, it definitely was this way. So this little comma part goes in here, and this one is attached to here, like so. So now I'm going to put it all back together again. That goes in like this, this goes in like that. Yep, and that all should all fit together again. So I'm just going to apply the screws, make sure it all lines up and works mechanically. In my examination, oops, sorry about that. In my examination, I always had a suspicion about this reversing mechanism system, what we want to call it, because this bar has segments incorporated into it. What I didn't notice was that behind it, this here, is another lever that contacts onto this bar. And it wasn't making contact unless I put some pressure on it. So once I realised that, I realigned it all, lubricated it, and now I think I can get it working. Once I can get this synchronised into the right place. Sorry, I've turned the voltage down. Right. And you can see there it's starting to work. I don't get a good connection here. Right, so you can see that the motor is now running, and I'm going to just adjust the control. Whoops! Keep touching the button, and I can control the speed from the controller. So now I think I can get my locomotive to actually get up and running on track. So here's the situation I'm at just now. I stripped all this down. These caps are very hard to put in, but I've got them in as best I can. And now I'm just simply going to apply power across the shoes. Wow! Wow! Okay, let me just take that off. Just good old clean and lubrication. So this time I'll fit it up onto a piece of track. Connect the two leads. Just switch the power off yet first. The center lead into the middle and the A lead into one of these. And of course it may be the wrong way around. Oops. Wow, right, we've now got, oh, and I think it's operating through the power supply. Oops, what happened there? Whoops, whoops, right, okay, I'll hook up on a longer piece of track and I'll experiment with this. We'll be back soon. Right, I think I can get my 040 to run, stop, reverse. He says it's got to the stage where, oops, I just switched it off. Let me put it back on again. There we go. I've got the control fully down. Turn it up. And it goes into one direction. We'll call that reverse. I switch it, and now it should go forward, reverse. I don't have a lot of track. But now I'm getting the locomotive to respond. Oops. Yeah, it's definitely starting to respond. At this stage I've managed to rig up a little loop on top of my test layout, and I've got my 040 sitting in the track connected to the transformer. So I'm hoping this is going to go okay. The track is quite badly corroded, so I've cleaned up as best I can to get it going, and I've got my power supply set on for the V to C connection, which is the controllable one. So my power supply is set up with V to C connections that go to the track. Controller is wound down, so I'm just going to bring it up and hopefully there it goes. And the track has been quite badly corroded, so I've cleaned up as best I can just to get a bit of track, and the locomotive is running reasonably well. Basically, I think a good clean-up. I actually removed a bit of screw from inside the armature housing, cleaned it up, made sure the contacts are okay, and then I learned how to work it. So you can see it's going forward, but there is a reversing action in the mechanism. And let me just bring it down and I'll show you what it is. Let's try and get my screwdriver as a pointer. This here is a kind of solenoid. There's a solenoid plate there, and that activates this gear wheel, which turns this part here. Now, so it's on forward, and there it goes. Okay, now this is the thing. If I then turn the voltage down, then I'll quickly switch over to here, activate this switch. You hear it activating once, twice, and now this should go in reverse. Oops, there's a bad bit of track there. So flick the switch once, it stops. Flick the switch again, it goes into reverse. I'm not sure if I would like that, but once I get this track all up and running, it would be better. So I'm just going to build the machine up, and we'll put it in its fine glory, and maybe haul a couple of wagons. Reassembly. The weight has to fit in somewhere. I think it must fit in somewhere around about there. Looks good. There is a spring which sits over this cap, and then the body shell fits over the rest. As far as I can tell, it just sits down, squeezes in, and gets held in by the buffers. I'm just going to put one of the screws in to hold it in place. So that will hold it in place. I'll work in the rear buffer. like so, and then this other buffer screws in. Let me just get a touch of lubrication on the thread. So I should have this ready. That in there. Oops. Put the buffer beam in as well. It's all falling to bits here. Okay. And buffer in there. Yep, that's in. And then this one in here, and I've made sure I've allowed that gap there to put the coupler in when I'm ready to do that. Okay, so now I've got that in, I can release this buffer again, fit the buffer bar and refit the buffer itself. And the last buffer, which is here, sits in. I'm going to turn my attention now to the 440 locomotive, and if you look at this, there's only one set of centre shoes. The other pickup comes from the tender and connected to the tender pickup pin. So I'm going to wire up my power supply with one connection on the pickup pin and the other one directly to the centre shoe. And that should provide power into the motor. So I've got the connection to the V output of the power supply, switch it on, not much happening, little click there, turn the power up, flick the power supply switch a couple of times to see if that'll activate the reverser, but there's not a lot happening. So let's get the body shell off and see what's inside. Motor very similar in appearance. There's a reverser there. Just checking this bit here out. Yep. Okay. And of course the brushes held in by these screw-in caps. Okay, let's just take those out. Make sure the brushes are okay. And this one here. It would definitely be an opportune moment to order up some new brushes. And they're reluctant to come out. Right. Oh. How important is this? But this here has broken off. Was that me? Or was it like that? It's certainly difficult to come off, and I don't remember forcing it. In fact, when I took this out, it fell off, so I thought it was okay, but obviously that's just for support, isn't it? Yep, there's no electrical connection there. But I'll probably order one up anyway if I can. Have a look at the spares section in the association. I think it's just a support. As I'm reassembling this, the second collar on this little bracket here also broke off. It's obviously fragile. So I'm just going to stop at this point with this locomotive and put out the video on the 040, and then when I get the parts in for this I can continue. So there's going to be a part 3. Well, I think I can feel rather pleased with myself because I've got the locomotive running. Unfamiliar technology, unfamiliar mechanism, but I've got it running pretty nicely. I hope you liked that, and if you did, please comment favourably and give me a like, and if you haven't already done so, you may want to subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I'll leave you with some shots of it running around the track. It's very noisy, so I don't want to speak over it, but I'll let you see it in action around my temporary track. Until the next time, when I'll hopefully get the 440 up and running, everybody take care, have a good new year, and don't forget, it's bye for now.